Hi, my name is Michael Diedrich,
Hi, my name is Hunter Dykes.
and our partner Aaron Madden is in the booth right now. We chose the yo-yo for our group project because, well, everyone knows what the yo-yo is. It's one of America's most popular toys of all time, and, well, we decided to shed a little light on its amazing history.
And then we split our group into three different parts to kind of delve into that history of the yo-yo. We have Michael talking about the antecedents of the yo-yo, dating all the way back to Greece and China. And then we have me talking about the actual creation of the yo-yo itself, where we are talking about Pedro Flores and Donald Duncan Sr. And then Aaron is going to be talking about the popularization of the yo-yo.
While the modern day yo-yo is without a doubt an American invention, it's important to note that its origins date back thousands of years. The yo-yo, in fact, has its origins in ancient Greece, dating back to 500 BC, and may in fact have had its origins in ancient China as well. Now, much like today, the predecessors to the yo-yo were devices that were made as toys for children, except instead of being called yo-yo, they were simply called discs. The discs were made out of material that was common in ancient Greece at the time, including wood, metal, and a substance known as terracotta. Now, one of the more interesting traditions amongst the children during ancient Greece would involve a ritual where the children would sacrifice many of their toys, including these discs, to the ancient Greek gods in order to appease them during times of poverty and famine. Now, as I said before, the yo-yo has its origins all over the world, not just in ancient Greece. As I previously mentioned, it has its origins in places such as China, India, and the Philippines. In the 16th century, another precursor to the yo-yo emerged in the Philippines. This device, not a toy for children, however, but a weapon used by the local hunters. Hunters would tie small rocks to cords that were up to 20 feet in length and then position themselves in trees, hiding for hours on end. Once a small animal passed underneath them, the hunters would launch these yo-yo-like devices at the animal's small heads. A well-placed shot would kill them instantly. The flexibility of the cord allowed the rocks to return to the hunter's hands, much like a yo-yo, and allowed them to attack multiple times from the same hiding spot without moving and without any fear of being discovered by their prey. This discovery proves that the yo-yo's origins can be traced to locations all over the world, all throughout history. The Philippines also happens to be where the inventor of the modern-day yo-yo, Pedro Flores, comes from.
Now I'm going to pick up where Michael left off talking about Pedro Flores and the modern day yo-yo. Now in 1928, a man named Pedro Flores immigrated from the Philippines to California and almost immediately founded the yo-yo manufacturing company. Now, that same year, a businessman named Donald F. Duncan Sr. saw Pedro demonstrating to a large crowd what the yo-yo was and how it worked. Duncan then bought the company from Flores because he was so impressed by it for $700,000 and then renamed it the Duncan Company. Flores then would later say, "I am more interested in teaching children to use the yo-yo than I am manufacturing the yo-yo." Duncan at this point had received the trademark for the word yo-yo in 1932, forcing his competitors to use other names for their version of the toy. Examples would include comeback, whirligig, returning top, and twirler. Now, in 1946, Duncan moved his company to Luck, Wisconsin, which is now known as the yo-yo capital of the world. Now, fast forward about 14 years to 1960. Plastic yo-yos that we still use to this day that are considered modern yo-yos began to be manufactured by Duncan Company. By 1962, the company sold a record 45 million yo-yos in a country with only 40 million kids, and yet could still not keep up with the demand for their product. Now, in later years, Duncan Company ran into some legal troubles. In 1965, the Federal Court of Appeals ruled the trademark that was held on the word yo-yo was no longer valid. This was due to the argument that the term yo-yo was so widely used that it no longer described the toy, it was the toy. Now, Aaron is going to talk about the popularization of the yo-yo.
So now I'm going to talk about the popularization of the yo-yo. The yo-yo became very popular in Europe during the 18th century. There have been reports of European nobles playing with the toy. These include King Louis XVII, the Prince of Wales, and even Napoleon and his army had yo-yos at Waterloo. In 1928, Pedro Flores opened a toy manufacturing company in Santa Barbara, California. He hosted the first yo-yo contest in Santa Barbara. This was only the start for the craze that followed. This said craze made the yo-yo one of the most popular toys in the 20th century. During this time, Donald Duncan, an entrepreneur, sought to make his own yo-yos, so he bought Flores' trademark for the yo-yo so he could sell his products with the name yo-yo. Duncan met with the newspaper magnate Randolph Hearst. He proposed that Hearst's company would sell newspapers and yo-yos. Hearst newspapers would advertise the yo-yos to children with incentives of competitions where they could win bikes and other sporting equipment. Soon after, a 30-day campaign was put in the newspapers in Philadelphia. During this campaign, 30 million yo-yos were sold. As popularity increased, the newspapers started publishing pictures of celebrities posing with the toy. In 1962, Duncan sold 45 million yo-yos in a country that only had 40 million children. And in 1974, President Nixon can be seen learning tricks with the yo-yo as he attended an event at the Grand Ole Opry. Other companies started to promote the yo-yo as well. The Russell Company promoted yo-yos in allegiance with Coca-Cola, thus creating another yo-yo craze to sweep the world in the 1980s. It was seen in a 10-week campaign that 4 million Coca-Cola branded yo-yos were sold. The craze started to slow down until the 90s hit. It was in the 90s that yo-yo competitions re-emerged. The first modern national yo-yo championships were held in California in 1993. But as time went on, the yo-yo trends started to slowly diminish as new trends emerged.
In conclusion to our documentary, I will be summarizing what we talked about for the yo-yo. Michael delved into the antecedents of the yo-yo dating back to ancient Greece in 500 BC all the way up to 16th century Philippines, talking about the yo-yo weapon that was made from a piece of cord and a rock. I talked about the creation of the modern day yo-yo with Pedro Flores making the yo-yo manufacturing company, Donald Duncan Sr. buying the company from him, manufacturing his own yo-yo, and all sorts of different things happening with that, including the creation of that modern day yo-yo that we still use today in 1960. Now, Aaron talked about the popularization of the yo-yo and advertisements that were used to benefit kids from using the toy throughout the United States. I hope that you enjoyed the documentary. Thank you for listening.